Every year, brilliant minds come together for 1 week in the Sonoran Desert to showcase and celebrate the growing innovation, creative, and entrepreneurial ecosystems of the Southwest. Led by Startup Tucson and Ranch House Media, TENWEST Impact Festival unites our audiences to gain the knowledge and inspiration they need to make a difference within their own careers and communities. Welcome to TENWEST Talks, our podcast where we broadcast the TENWEST mission and vision to the world. My name is Liz Pocock, and I am the CEO of Startup Tucson. Startup Tucson is the producer of TENWEST, the founder of TENWEST. We've been doing the festival for 7 years. I have been with the festival for 6 of those 7 years, and with the organization for 6 years. Startup Tucson works to support entrepreneurs and small businesses here in our community and all of Southern Arizona. And today's guest, we are very excited for. Me personally, this was my fangirl invite for the festival, is Alex Rosen from GoDaddy Venture Forward. So hello, Alex, and welcome to the inaugural TENWEST podcast. We're so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So I'm just going to start by saying how we found you, because I have been following, so as a startup supporter nerd, I'll say that, fangirl. So I love entrepreneurs. I love my job. I love the fact that I get to help people launch their dream and their vision. And a lot of those are micro businesses, less than 10 employees, especially when they start. And my job is different every day. We help them with all different sorts of things. And one of the things that we do as a nonprofit that's based in economic development here in Tucson is we really try to tell their story. So we try to tell the story of the impact that these businesses have on our community. And a lot of times in these bigger economic development conversations, they get left out because they are smaller and, they're not the Amazon headquarters that's going to relocate here and create 50 jobs right away. They're not as sexy as some of the keep the businesses here. So they're a new type of economic development. And we've been I feel advocating, pounding the pavement, trying to tell this story for a really long time. And we knew, because we're in it every day and we work with 400 entrepreneurs a year, that they make this huge impact in our community. But we just didn't have the data to show it. And then we found the data that GoDaddy was producing with Venture Forward. And we could start to capture and tell that story a little bit better. So I had been following the data for a while.
I love
and we had this pipe dream of oh my God, it would be amazing if we could get GoDaddy Venture Forward team to come. And I sent a random cold email, and then I sent another one, and then you finally answered, and then we talked and we were oh yeah, okay, lifelong friends. Great. So thank you again for being here. We're so happy that you're here. So I'm going to start by asking you to introduce yourself and give a little background of GoDaddy Venture Forward, and then your background, particularly how you got there. You're a director. What was that like? So
awesome. Wow. So much to react to.
I know.
I'm truly excited to be here to start with the story of how we met, how we became BFFs and being fans of entrepreneurship and fans of each other. And apologies that it took twice to write.
It's fine. I was glad I got an answer.
No, that email was great. And I have to say that the second I opened it and I read about Startup Tucson, I read about TENWEST, I said, this is cultural DNA alignment. Our visions of the fact that entrepreneurs, digital entrepreneurs who have a website, who have fewer than 10 employees, are making an outsized impact, and oftentimes not in this conversation. And everything you've done here in Tucson to bring that attention and help them get resources, tell their story, like you said. I mean, it was we have to come.
Great.
We booked the next flight. So to kind of give a little history on this initiative.
Yeah.
Venture Forward is a research initiative that was born out of GoDaddy's mission to make opportunities more inclusive for all. Because we really do believe that if you don't understand these entrepreneurs, how can you support them?
Yep.
If you can't track them or see them, where they are, what they're doing, how can you support them? GoDaddy's in a really unique position that a lot of times when someone has an idea for a business, what's the first thing they do?
Make a website.
Exactly. They buy the domain, and if they're really prepared and amped, they make that website. So we get to see them from ground up when they
first buy that domain.
Exactly. And oftentimes if you ask these entrepreneurs, what industry are you in, or are you an entrepreneur, those words are just not necessarily how they think of themselves. They think, and we have the data on this, they want to be their own boss or they're following a passion. They just think about, they're trying to do their business, not trying to build websites and whatnot. And so our goal is to make it easier and to see them from that ground up, because they're not registered yet, and to share that data as freely as possible. So in 2018, we started looking at, to quantify where they're growing, how many of them are there, down to the zip code across the United States. We're now in the UK and expanding internationally.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. It's all on our website.
Cool.
And we also started surveying them because we see it as two parts. We want to quantify their outsized impact on the economy. We also want to shed a light on the entrepreneurs behind them. What's on their mind? What needs do they have? Who they are? I'll drop some stats throughout this, but it's so exciting to see the power of the entrepreneurship. We all know it's powerful. That's the premise of what you do. And like you said, without data, maybe that's just a hunch. We need that data for the chambers of commerce, for the economic development offices, to have those business cases to show that it's not just a nice thing to do to support small entrepreneurs and small businesses.
It's necessity
not just the
for
right
our community.
thing, but it's a win-win.
Totally. So how did you get to GoDaddy?
So it feels like it was the most fitting thing, but it was kind of a long time in the making. So I've always been passionate about helping people pursue their passions or understand how to navigate something unfamiliar. I came to this country when I was young with my parents, and I watched them struggle in learning a new language and figuring out job opportunities. Everything was foreign. And thankfully, we had so many amazing resources. We had so many people advocating for us and community to support us. And we were able, and that inspired me to always think about, how can I bridge things, bridge opportunities, connect the unconnected, and create the platforms and tools to make it easier. So my career took me first to Google, which kind of, I joined back in the early days of online advertising and Sheryl Sandberg's organization, and it was also, people coming online. They didn't know what they were doing. How do you select a keyword? And just watching an organization that was focused on making online advertising something you do yourself directly. Then I moved.
Accessible to all types of businesses.
That's perfect.
Yeah, Google really did that at the beginning. Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Then after that, I moved on to Cisco. And Cisco also, without the infrastructure of the internet, there's not much you can do. So I really believed in, they were helping so much, again, in connecting opportunities. They were in technical training for people to, no matter your background, no matter your education, you can have a career in tech. And that was so exciting. I worked on everything from the Olympics to music tours.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
Global Citizen Festival, help and bringing students of technology to set up the Wi-Fi there, to help people there connect with each other, food vendors to sell better. So then when I heard, I've always loved GoDaddy. I mean, there's just...
Yeah, they have, me too.
Right.
Again, fangirl, their Phoenix office, headquarters, right? So right up the road from us. And they've just always been, they were kind of one of the first that made it accessible for small businesses to get online.
Exactly. It's always about accessibility, because that's how we push innovation, which is why I'm so excited also to be here for Innovation Day, kicking this off. Because innovation is thinking differently. And GoDaddy really has done that, and always thinking of how to better the customer, how to better entrepreneurship. And so when I heard they had this project or this research initiative in 2018 of, hey, we're sitting on this data, we need to figure out how to bring it to market. I got so excited of, let's figure out how to tell the stories. Let's figure out how to showcase the data and how to share it as freely as possible. That we just want to inspire people like yourself. We want to inspire the advocates. And so been here since 2019.
Nice.
I'm just so excited, loving every day.
The perfect role for you too. It sounds like you bring all that corporate experience. You're able to bring some of your personal background, your desire to advocate and support and help to this role that then helps me help other people. It's great. It's like a full circle.
It's so great. It is. It does feel just so organic, and it was kind of turned out to be really opportune time in a number of ways, because I joined in 2019. 2020, obviously, pandemic hit. And for the first time in a long time, small businesses became the center of conversation in a way they haven't.
They had not. And you saw probably because of your data, you saw more federal funding for small businesses. You saw a lot of different support. And I mean, we felt it here in Tucson. You saw some of our larger companies were the ones that were doing the layoffs,
Right.
whereas some of our smaller companies, those small under 10 digital and non-digital, were the ones that were bending over backwards to keep their employees, feeding their employees and their families, like everything that they could do to keep that alive and get that PPP money and all of those different things,
Right.
to really continue to support and show up for the people
Right.
side of it. And that's the fabric of local communities. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been, and now I think, again, because of that data and because you saw the impact those small businesses were making during that time of need for our country, we've just seen a lot more support for small business moving forward, which has been incredible.
It's been so amazing. We've watched, even during pandemic, when we've published our first report, in Denison, Texas, somebody reached out and they said, actually, we saw your data that a micro business, adding one micro business per 100 people can increase household income almost $500 for the whole county. And so they said, we took that, we created an e-commerce accelerator, and we allocated funding so that if people finish this program, we're going to give them money to get online to be successful. Just stories like that where, because our data does show that during that time, areas that had more micro businesses saw lower unemployment rates if they also had good internet. They saw lower low-income job loss. We saw people have to, maybe they were just furloughed temporarily. They start a side hustle. I mean, we've reevaluated what's important to us.
Yeah.
And just watching, again, back to, I love your word of accessibility and access, watching that the internet, it's not just about the availability of it, but how you use it. Digital entrepreneurship enables people to pursue what they want, and that in turn becomes part of a healthy economy. Those, like you mentioned, that those towns, those areas that maybe had a lot of eggs in one basket, they saw how the long tail, the everyday entrepreneur really helped also be the backbone of the economy. It's part of an overall healthy economic discussion. Yeah,
and we actually just had a panel earlier today that was around fostering economic development through collaboration. And it was really fun because we are, I think those groups are thinking a little bit more holistically about economic development, right? It's about attraction, retention, and growth.
Yeah.
And so you need to support all three pillars.
Yes.
And so this panel had, county economic development, Arizona Commerce Authority, venture development and investment in local startups. So we're trying to round out that story. And I think that everything that GoDaddy's done has really helped with that. So let's talk about some of this data. So, you gave me a few bullet points, so we're just going to kind of go through them and talk about them. So Tucson averages over 7 micro businesses per every 100 adults. So let's actually start with, how does GoDaddy define a micro business?
Great question. We define it the way we can see it, which is they have a unique domain with an active website. Then we survey them to understand more about them, which is how we know 95% have fewer than 10 employees.
Okay, so that's huge. 7 micro businesses per every 100 adults. I can just think of, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, but that's a huge percentage of a local population.
It's huge. And it's, in Tucson, there's over 50,000 micro businesses.
Yes, that's incredible.
From our latest survey. So it's, in all of Arizona, there's over 450,000.
Wow. Yeah. That's so many. Okay. And so let's talk about, Let's talk about how much income. You mentioned that $500 number. Let's talk about that a little bit. So these micro businesses are adding income into our economy. So how does that work?
Yeah. So think about if you're starting something, let's say you're really good at making cupcakes and you're really good at consulting. So let's just say you have both businesses, right? You also have your job here. You start your online business. Now you are no longer, maybe you ship your cupcakes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Your demand can come from outside your community. So when you're selling, you're bringing more money and income into your community because your audience is wider spread. And now when you bring that income in, it lifts the whole community up in terms of what's the average income, household income.
Yeah, that's incredible. So we're not only adding to the household income, the median household income for our region, but we're also creating some jobs, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
So for every one microbusiness entrepreneur, we found that there's 7 jobs created. And now we might say, hey, they're microbusinesses, they have fewer than 10 employees. Where are you getting 7 from? The 7 is because when you hold everything else constant, microbusiness owners are either hiring directly, so maybe they're expanding. They're hiring indirectly, so maybe I just need help with my website, or maybe I need a supplier of cake batter. I'm sticking with this baking.
I love it. I love it. Let's go with it.
Makes you hungry.
Right before lunch.
That's right. And then the third could be because now you have more money, disposable income. You're spending more.
It.
Therefore, there needs to be have a higher demand within the community.
I love that. So you've been able to kind of extrapolate how their impact is beyond just jobs. And I think that's been one of the challenges for us when we talk to traditional economic developers that haven't yet understood the true impact of these micro businesses, is they answer that question of like, well, but it's still just them, or it's them and they hired like a part-time consultant, or it's them and they hired this other, but they only have 3 jobs. And you're like, well, not really, because there's a multiplier effect. And they're more likely to spend in their community, especially if they're women. So we have a stat on that too. Let's talk about the stat on women. About half of all micro businesses are owned by women and growing.
Isn't that insane?
Insane. So why do you guys think that is, or what are you finding in that data?
So we found that uptick happened so much during the pandemic. It went up 25% or 10 percentage points, from 41% to 51% from 2019.
Wow.
We're seeing that because microbusinesses are a way to close equity gaps and economic gaps. People who, for example, might not have the same salaries in the job market, might need more flexibility
to take care of their children.
All the different ways that, women might have gotten pushed out of a traditional workforce or had struggled, whether during pandemic, before or after. They're now seeing, hey, I can own my own business, and they're going for it. And we know that, I'm going to get you the exact stat, because we have a really good one building on that, and that's that, about 3 out of 10 women with a micro business are the breadwinners in their home.
Wow,
So they're contributing more than 51% of household income through their micro business. So again, it's such again, coming as an immigrant here, I hear a lot about the American dream, right? The ability to pursue freedom and happiness, and freedom and working
when you want, how you want, on what you want.
Exactly. And the happiness of how do you making a life and making a living, and that and this again, flabbergasted with the excitement, but it's such an amazing opportunity that micro businesses offer, that notion of whether it's old version, today's version, anyone's custom version of the American dream.
That's totally true. I think it's, again, that's why I'm a fangirl of this data, because we see all that. We've seen all that for years. Like, we've seen, Startup Tucson has over 50% female entrepreneurs as part of our membership.
Nice.
And we've seen pre-COVID, during, and post-pandemic, just more and more people choosing entrepreneurship as their path forward, whether accidental, they needed it, or intentional, or necessity because they lost a job. And, we've always kind of felt that, but like anecdotally, and we can collect data from our entrepreneurs, but it's such a small slice that it's hard to like equate that into something that others can understand. And so the GoDaddy just really empowers us to do that. And so I just like, when I read that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Half of micro businesses are women, led by women, and that tracks totally with our data too. So it's just been so amazing. So I think we'll wrap up. Validating. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up, since it's time to prep for your keynote, since you'll be on the main stage in half an hour after lunch. So I just want to say thank you again, Alex, and thank you to GoDaddy venture team for being out here, and Sandy for gathering all this data for us. And this is episode 2 of the TENWEST podcast. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz.
TENWEST Impact Festival is produced by Startup Tucson and Ranch House Media. The 2023 edition is presented by the Arizona Commerce Authority and brought to you by Arizona Arts Live and Pima Community College. The TENWEST podcast is made possible by Cloud Microphones. To learn more and view the full list of sponsors and partners, visit tenwest.com.